EDU584 Visioning Map, Ms. Tabitha Smith. My key takeaway from math instruction. The key takeaway from math instruction is sure that students have a number of ways to analyze and complete math problems. Ways that I will use would be visuals, manipulative items, hands-on work, as well as audio. My SMART goal for math. As a teacher, I will model division of two-digit math problems so that my students are able to successfully divide by rounding up or down. This skill will be completed by the end of the month of December with the 85% of success from the scholars. My key takeaway for science instruction. The key takeaway for science instruction is that science should be hands-on and interactive that brings real-life situations to the classroom for students. In past years, even decades ago, everything was just straight out of a book. It was not a lot of remembering things, but if you're using hands-on and it's very interactive, science can be a great experience as well as using real-life situations. Science can be great for students and it will allow them to remember more interesting and evidential facts. My SMART goal for science. As a teacher, I will incorporate real-life experiences into science so that students are able to have more hands-on activities and interactions. There is no deadline to this as it will be ongoing within every science lesson plan. I would normally say by the end of June 2020 for the school year. Results would be more scholars are engaged, more scholars are interested in different aspects of science. My key takeaway for engineering. This is kind of probably my most interesting thing over this class. My key takeaway for engineering is the idea that there are so many different avenues within engineering that can incorporate students and learning at a higher level. Engineering has so many different levels, so many different careers, so many outlets that it can inspire students to dream and think outside the box and be more creative within their learning process. For instance, when we did our tower for the mouse, we used math, we used science, and we used engineering, and that was a great way of incorporating all aspects of STEM, all compartments, all components, and engaging us being creative, us thinking outside the box, everything. As a teacher, I will introduce my students to a different career each month that falls under the engineering category. This will allow them to see how there are so many more careers out there and not just the normal ones, like a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. The deadline expectations of this goal will be June 2020. They will learn about a different career in engineering field every month. This can inspire students to be more than just the norm. When I went to the collab lab, like just talking to so many different people and seeing there's so much more to science and engineering, it was just a great experience, and I want my students to experience the same thing that I did. You learning something new every day, and learning about engineering and learning about ways that can help the earth and that can help you individually as well as your community. It was just a phenomenal experience, and I want to give that same thing to my scholars. Key takeaway for differentiation instruction. The key takeaway for differentiation instruction is the idea that I must be in every lesson, every class. Your class of students are not the same, so your instruction should not be the same. And this is a major issue for me. Learning, I cannot learn straight through. I need different ways to learn myself as an adult. So I definitely am going to use differentiation instruction in the way that I teach my scholars because I feel like I'm in their shoes. I need to learn different ways, and one instructor teaches the straight way, it messes up your whole learning plan, your whole learning process, and you become frustrated. SMART goal for differentiation instruction. As a teacher, I will create lesson plans that have multiple levels of understanding and learning so that my students are able to be successful in their own way, at their own level, at their own pace. This is a goal that is ongoing until the end of the school year 2020 so that all students have a fighting chance of success at their own pace. key takeaway for models of teaching. One major takeaway that there are so many models or techniques to teach. Teachers should never have one way of teaching, and this goes back to differentiation instruction. Doing different ways of modeling. I might teach straight out the book. One I may use a visual, one I may use a PowerPoint, one I may bring a person in and then bring in real life experiences. So some models are more successful than others, but as a teacher, you must identify what is best for your classroom environment, for your classroom lesson plan at that particular time. SMART goal for models teaching. My model of teaching SMART goal as a teacher would be to utilize different models to where my students are able to be heard and working at their own pace to where they are successful at completion of tasks and learning plans. The models will be incorporated into everyday learning, so the deadline is June 20th, end of the school year. The results expected will be that students' growth and understanding is evident within the utilization of certain models over others during assessment processes. My key takeaway for inquiry-based learning. One key takeaway from the inquiry-based learning is that triggering inquiry is about learning something new, and triggering curiosity takes modeling enthusiasm, and learning something new generates our own enthusiasm, even if it's sometimes new about content we've covered for years as a teacher. And as for me, I am very enthusiastic about teaching, so I always bring joy to my teaching. I'm always bringing interactive. I'm always engaging with the students. I always let them think for themselves. I always ask them, what do you think? What are you thinking? As a teacher, I will create an environment where students are able to develop questions that they are hungry to answer. I will allow students to research their concerns and present what they found in their own way. The results are evident with presentations given by the students. The deadline of this goal will be June 2020. And with inquiry-based learning, you have to give the kids choices. You have to let them talk. You have to let them think. And there should not be a time limit within reason. Key takeaway for 21st century skills. One key takeaway for 21st century skills is the fact that students should be engaged in the learning and they should be given choices and options to their learning. Every student is not the same. They cannot learn the same. They should be given options on how they learn as long as they're getting to the same results. You have the same outcome, but how you get to that outcome will be different with each student. The SMART goal for 21st century skills as a teacher, I will encourage and focus on allowing my students to make choices on their own by the students being engaged in their learning and challenging themselves to grow. The results of this goal is evident when students are more engaged in classroom discussions and interactions. The deadline is June 2020. Key takeaway for assessment. Assessment should not be one way. You can incorporate summative as well as formative assessments in your teaching so you're able to assess students on different levels at different times.